When the animation studio handling Oregairu changed from season 1 to 2, the result was greater than simply an art style change. The visual techniques the series utilised became distinct and a core part of Oregairu's appeal. Take the lighting as an example. It felt so eye-catchingly vivid, and that intensity aided the impact of some of the most important scenes. These visual changes, along with more focus on the nuance of character dialogue, helped push the mature direction Oregairu started taking, which definitely initiated my love for it. In particular, I grew attached to a certain character, feeling her struggles incredibly close to heart.
私、この部活好きなの。好きなの。
The use of the sun setting in scenes of emotional significance to Yui Uegahama is a somewhat consistent setup used to heighten the delicate tension in that moment. Firstly, in an aesthetic sense, the colour palette of a sunset complements Yui's character design quite well, drawing out her pink hair and eyes. This creates a more vivid and intense look, particularly when the shot is close up on Yui's face. The lighting is also a striking part of the composition. The route that Yui and Hachiman take back home from school has a lot of trees, which casts a shadow on the characters. This is then used to capture their moods when they talk, particularly with Yui using lighter shots to signify contentment and darker shots to show her emotional pain. Personally, I feel the choice of dusk is symbolic on some level of Yui's connection with Hachiman. Despite how much Yui tries to fight it, it is inevitable that her relationship will fundamentally change with the club when her feelings become known. The inescapable transition into night from sunset captures this perfectly. Now, if we look at Yukino, there's definitely a contrast in how Oregairu utilises the surrounding environment in her most important scenes compared to Yui. This is most obvious at the end of episode 7 in season 2, when Yukino tells Hachiman he can distance himself from the club to focus on helping Iraha. While the scene is set at night, the whole frame is illuminated by the lights wrapped around the trees, which creates a prominent blue hue. Similar to the sunset in Yui, this complements the colours of Yukino's character design. The emptiness of the shot is what allows the conversation taking place to be the centre of attention, while also being reflective of the coldness of what is actually being said. This is something I find wonderful about Oregairu. It has a very nuanced approach to revealing information. Keeping on the subject of Yukino, I want to touch on a more unique visual method utilised to represent the growing connection between her and Hachiman, this being the gradually changing physical distance of the two characters. On the surface, it's quite self-explanatory. For most of season 2 there's a distinct gap between Yukino and Hachiman, which denotes their difficulty to comprehend each other's personalities. As Yukino begins to understand Hachiman more, the distance starts to close, which, although simple, is such a powerful way of communicating this development to the viewer. You might have also noticed that Yui is typically placed between Yukino and Hachiman. This extends beyond when they're at the club, and while I think at first this just modestly shows that she's more comfortable with Hachiman, in a greater sense it shows the difference in the personality of Yukino and Yui. You could just say Yui is the more outgoing individual, so it makes sense for her to be closer, but that discredits her depth as a character. She is struggling to find a way to make her feelings for Hachiman known. Yui's attempts to get closer to him are reflected in her presence on screen. This brings me quite nicely into the final thing I'd like to very briefly talk about, which is Oregairu's character animation. If you look at any character in the series, they all move in a way that is representative of their own personality. Take Hachiman as the example. His slouched posture expresses pretty much all elements of his pessimistic outlook. This slowly becomes less apparent in season 3, however, which I feel is purposefully done to highlight these subtle changes in the way he treats others and his attitude. That pretty much draws this video to a close. Now, to summarise why I personally find Oregairu's visuals outstanding, it all comes down to how well it complements the idea of the series. To me, Oregairu is about one of the greatest challenges of youth, figuring out how exactly to interact with other people. This struggle isn't just communicated through the characters talking, it's incorporated into the visual design, which makes the whole thing that much more engaging. The importance of subtext cannot be understated in Oregairu. There's so much more to comprehend than just what is being spoken, and part of what allows that to be so successful comes from its visuals. I've been Russ, and have a great night or day.